In 1985, a robbery takes place in a Holiday Inn near Dallas.
Right.
Two clerks are tied up, gagged, shot. One of them, Douglas Walker, dies. He was shot in the back. And the other one, Donald Ray Hall, is paralyzed. Your wife at that time, Dorothy, she was a clerk at that hotel. Can you tell us what was your implication in that?
I was tried and convicted for being the person who shot these people at that particular hotel. And I was given the death penalty, death by lethal injection in 1985. What occurred is I was in Houston. I'm actually picking up some drugs. The SWAT team was waiting for me. And when I got there to get the drugs, they come out with guns and stuff. And I couldn't hear what they were saying because I had the radio turned up in the car. And so I put the car in reverse and I started backing up real fast when I seen these guys with all these guns and stuff. And then they started shooting. And I discovered at that particular time that they the police. So I got out the car and started to run, and they shot me in the back with an AR-15. And I think it was 4 months later, I wound up being sentenced to death by lethal injection.
You were indeed sentenced to death in 1986.
I was shot on November 21st with an AR-15. They pronounced me dead at the scene, from what I understand. My daughter and her mother saw it on the news. Somehow or another, I didn't die, okay? But I was in real bad shape. I'm talking about really bad shape. 4 months later, they gave me the death penalty.
Wow.
All right, and I wasn't physically even capable to even contest anything they was doing. I didn't have any pain medication. They gave me the pain medication. I had a double barrel colostomy, and I had to go to trial like for 6 weeks straight. Most of the time when I would go to trial, I would leave trial and go to John Seeley because I was kind of like really messed up. And I'd come back the next day and I'd sit in trial. Most of the time I had my head on the table because I was in a lot of pain. And you know, what they was doing, it didn't really matter too much to me at that particular time.
So you were not aware during this trial?
I was in and out, you know, based upon the situation. I was the first person shot by the Houston SWAT team and lived. And I didn't really realize what a big deal it was to them at the time. But even though I lived, they said I'd be crippled for the rest of my life. I have a double barrel colostomy. And man, I've been really blessed just to be alive now, 40 years later.
Hi everyone, Thomas Miller L. was on Texas death row for years, meaning that the state of Texas thought killing him would be the best interest of the society. Well, believe it or not, today he's a life coach. The administration thought that he would be a good person to help other inmates become better people. I came and met him in his unit, wine unit, and this interview is just so inspiring. I'm in Guatemala right now, and after this interview, I'm going to explain to you how the Maya used to kill people just because they lost a ball game. Yes, the death penalty for losing a game. Can you believe that? And guess if it was for the rich people or for the poor people? Hey, I'm sure you can guess already.
Prosecutors struck 10 out of the 11 black people who were eligible to serve on your jury.
Right.
It will take 20 years for your sentence to be overturned.
They reversed my case like, I think it was like June the 13th, 2005. I remember when I went back to the county jail and we got up the next morning to go to breakfast. And a guy, when I was coming downstairs to get my breakfast tray, a guy told me good morning. And when he said good morning, I didn't even know what to say.
You had forgotten all that?
Well, just in a sense of, civility and normalcy, it's like, I've been on death row, I've been like on animal status, so to speak,
You've been helping a lot of inmates on death row and today here in the general population. Can you tell me how your experience on death row helps you helping these guys?
Before going to death row, I didn't really have a comprehension of what is the value of being in existence, to be alive. I never really comprehended that. Having a sense of being a human being is not nothing that I kind of like be registered, because in the era when we was raised up, it's almost like my father, when my mother had a child that was light-skinned. It was the norm back then that she could have been working for some people, white people, right? And if they wanted to have sex with her, then that's what they do, right? And there ain't no whole bunch they could do about it. I was kind of like raised up in the area where I had to get on, go on the front of the bus and then get off the front of the bus and go to the back of the bus. They had colored restrooms, they had white restrooms, they had colored water fountains, they had white water fountains, they had colored cemeteries, white cemeteries. So a form of degradation, debasement, humiliation, degradation, all that was a part of what I went through. So when people go through that kind of stuff, right, it takes away the humanity that you have, if you have any. So you don't have a sense of the value of purpose for life. And going to death row and seeing all those kids get executed, man, it was kids down there 17 years old. One kid got executed who, he was buying some cigarettes from the commissary, and they was bringing him this commissary, they bring it to the front of your cell. And he was talking noise to this officer who was bringing the commissary, and she looked at his date of birth, and she said, "Give me those cigarettes, those carton of cigarettes, those 2 cartons of cigarettes, you gotta give them back." He said, "What?" He said, "I ain't giving you nothing." He said, "This is the state of Texas, you can't buy cigarettes. You ain't 18 years old. You're not 18, but they're gonna execute him." So you get a chance to meet people on death row who was me. I didn't get a lot of this. I didn't understand a lot of stuff. Right? I didn't have nobody to teach me different things that, people from different other eras, they have. So I'm just going through life and having a sense of my own value or understanding the social form of correctness like most people do, even comprehending simple things that most people comprehend. I didn't really get that. So I had a chance to see other kids and older men on death row who may have had a similar plight, maybe not dealing with some racism like I did, but it's a lot of stuff they don't get. And people always say, you know better, okay? Most of these kids don't know better. A lot of these older dudes don't know better, because when you know better, you do better. And this is something I learned as a result of getting off death row and coming to population and wanting to help people. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to see nobody go to death row. I want to see nobody kid get life without parole. All right, so I remember when I got to this unit and they had gang members. They used to whoop guys down in the gym, in their gangs and stuff. And I remember going down there and I called all the gang members out. I said, I need to holler at y'all, right? So they came over there. I'm surrounded by dudes and gangs and stuff. I said, man, what y'all doing here, right, man? I said, man, y'all whooping these dudes, man, and stuff. If you mess around and kill one of these dudes, everybody in your gang can get the death penalty. You have life without parole. I said, man, y'all need to stop that. It make no sense. Guess what? They stopped whooping the dudes. You know what I'm saying? So by me being on death row, guys gave me a great respect because it's like they didn't understand, but I understood that everybody have a career in life. When you choose to be a criminal, okay, then you come to prison, okay. In order for you to make it to your highest level of your career, like a basketball player, you start out with little league and you go to maybe college ball or whatever, right? And then you want to make it to the NBA, all right? You want to go to the championship, we're gonna reign. You know, football players the same thing, baseball players, you know what I'm saying? In World Series, when you're a criminal, you know, the top of your career is going to death row. Or get life without parole. A lot of these kids don't get that. They don't understand that. It ain't no more McDonald's. You can't have it your way. You know, you're in a real prison. You know, whatever they feed, that's what you eat. You know, you around guys that are really aggravated. I'm talking about real prisoners. And it's bad things sometimes happening here. And it's sad when you got people who are treated like they hardened criminals. In my opinion, from learning the things I learned from being able to teach classes here in the prison, is that once you teach people civics, a social form of correctness, you teach them values, and you teach them morals, and you teach them ethics, and then you teach them how to think and how to think about their thought process, how to be aware of their thoughts. You know, you think about how, you teach them how their feelings, you know, what occurs when you feel a certain type of way, and how your feelings and your thoughts are constantly competition to control your behavior. And you got to make sure that your thoughts are what win the battle. They don't know that. So you have a lot of kids who are being given severe punishment. They don't understand civics.
Can you show me what's hanging on your cord here? Life coach.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it incredible to go from death row to life coach?
Well, what's really incredible to me is to be on death row and leave from death row and get a life sentence and be on life row, and then they consider me a life coach. I've been doing my best to transform so many lives in this prison system. You know, I've been going to different other units about 4 times a year, you know, talking to guys, and we've been fortunate enough to have an impact on so many lives, you know, help. You have guys who have been, I'm talking about the lowest level that you can get in prison, like G4 and G5, who, as a result of either taking our classes or we talk to them, wind up being field ministers. You have some of them that actually been life coaches. You have ones that got out of here and got businesses on the outside. I'm talking about trucking companies, and it's just all kind of things that people can achieve things once they understand how life functions. You know, they call it game, but they don't understand it's a certain way that you live life. But if you don't know, you're not able to do that.
And you've also been back on death row as a coach, right?
That was an awesome blessing.
How did it go?
I volunteered to go to the Plumsky unit to start a new program over there. They call it MBS, Mind, Body, and Soul. And on this Plumsky unit, there was a lot of staff assaults, a lot of stabbings, a lot of guys getting hit with fan motors, a lot of drugs and stuff like that, in which we did. And it changed everything over there. It's like the G4s start acting better than the G1 or G2s. And they was living, and ain't nobody jump on the officers, ain't nobody get stabbed, ain't nobody get hit with no fan motors. And it changed the whole culture of this prison, and it's constantly changing now, constantly growing over there.
But you went also to see inmates on death row, right?
Right. So when I got over there and I went back there, I had a chance to meet guys I was on death row with. And for them to see me, it's like, man, it gave them so much hope. And it's like they was all hollering and stuff, right? And it was just showed that it was an opportunity for them to kind of like really embrace a part of their humanity and realize that if he could do good and do this here, then we can do that. They got a faith-based dorm over there now, right? Where guys, they just be singing Christian music and stuff. Guys that really changed their life, aspiring to change their life like that, right? And what is having the opportunity to see somebody else that been back there with them. And I used to go back there and talk to them, spend a lot of time back there, communicate with them, mentor them. And it's the same thing all human beings want. All human beings want the same thing. It's just like some of them are aware of what they want and some of them are not. I learned patience on death row on a level that most people can't begin to imagine. You know, I learned what it's like to value kids who are mentored on death row and then watch them get executed, or watch them need to be executed. And I watched so many mothers, you know, in the visiting room screaming and hollering and crying, you know, don't kill my baby, don't kill my child, just take me. And to be able to help went through all this here. And then learning the value of life, to be in existence, to get a purpose, to be able to make a difference in the world. And I'm glad I took a life sentence. And I can't begin to imagine how many other guys on death row who wish they had another opportunity. You know what I'm saying? And being able to learn this curriculum. If you teach this kind of life skills, what we teaching to those guys on death row, the majority of them get out here and turn this whole prison system all the way around, because people listen to you. When you've been in death row and the people getting ready to kill you, this is the top of the career. People listen to you.
You've also been with inmates who were about to be executed.
That's right.
As a coach, too, to help them. And do you want to say a few words about that?
When I was on death row, this way before I got off, guys, before they get executed on Ellis unit, they would always want to talk to me. You could talk to about 4 or 5 dudes the day before you was executed, but they always wanted to talk to me. And they would tell me, like, Malia, you ain't gonna get executed, man. There's something special about you gonna get off death row. I say, we all gonna get off death row, something special about all of us, you know what I'm saying? But it is something that's different. But going back to death row and meeting and talking to some guys who getting ready to get executed, that was really extremely challenging, because I've been through the same process pretty much that they're going through, but I could connect with them in a way that could kind of like help them be able to deal with the situation that they going through. It was really challenging for me because one of the guys who was in the process of getting executed, who I was visiting, I knew him. You know, and we spent a lot of time, we played basketball together and stuff. And, you know, it was good just to be there for it. It's almost like a traumatizing experience. But for me, trauma causes me to fight harder, all right? It causes me to push harder because, you know, I have a purpose in this world, and the purpose in this world is not the purpose I'm on death row for. My purpose is to uplift humanity. And I don't care where I'll be at, who I'm around, I'm gonna do my best to help make this world a better place.
Great to get to see you, to meet you.
You all right?
I thought we were gonna be behind a glass, so that's great to see you, to be able to shake your hand. That's awesome. This is my wife, Cecile, here.
How you doing? All right, praise the Lord.
And I've heard great things about you, so I'm great we're gonna have this conversation.
Yeah, it's a blessing. Huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Hopefully, the things you heard turned out to be on point.
Yes, you were born in 1951 in East Texas in a small town called St. Augustine. Tell us what happened 1 year after your brother was born.
My mother and my father, we were the same complexion, all right? My mother, she had like a third grade education. I think my father had less than that. So a year after I was born, a year and about 10, 13 days, my brother was born. All right, he was very light complected, extremely light complected. And you know, my father, he didn't know about chromosomes, so he instantly assumed that my mother had been unfaithful to him. So he kidnapped me and took me to Houston and left me with his mother.
Wow. After that, you grew up in Houston in the 5th Ward. Right. So you were raised by your father and your grandmother.
I was actually raised by my grandmother. My father kind of like disappeared. He was just going different places, you know? And plus he was kind of like, I didn't know it at that time, but he was like a functional alcoholic. Okay, you never know he's drunk unless you smell his breath. And I got a chance to see him maybe probably about the first 10 or 12 years of my life. I got a chance to see him maybe once a year, or once every 6 months or something like that. It just depends, you know, but I didn't get a chance to see him that much until I was around about 13. And then he showed up and he started getting a job. He's kind of like settled down a little bit. And I got a chance to be around him for a while.
At age 11, he shot at you. Can you tell us what happened?
What occurred is that I was living with his mother and she had a Pearl Hammer 45, all right? And it's like everybody saw it really like that gun, right? It come up missing, all right? So my grandmother, you know, she didn't know where it was at. She thought I had it. So she called him, and when he came, only thing he understood is I had the gun. So he took me into the room, and he hit me upside the head with his fist. I ran around the bed, under the bed, and when he got to the other side, I got up and started running to the back door, and I was able to get out the back door in time. And when I was running, I jumped the fence, and he started shooting at me.
Wow. You escaped that day?
Yes, fortunately. I was able to kind of like get away. You know, my father had a very, he could be just as calm, but then all of a sudden he have a rage, and I think it was kind of related to his alcoholism, you know, and drinking a lot and stuff, right? He used to drink a lot of Thunderbird and Sherry and stuff, and that stuff make you go insane, so to speak. Matter of fact, that's why as I grew up, and later on I got a chance to meet my mom, and she kind of like was alcoholic too, right? And that kind of like really turned me off for alcohol and stuff, right? So.
But that day, you've been hiding for a week or so?
Yeah, I stayed gone for probably about 10 days. And my grandmother sent a message for me to come home. So I went back home, and you know, everything was all right at that point.
What was your grandmother doing?
She was like retired, so to speak. You know, she didn't really do anything. At one while, she was working when I was real young. She worked for a Rice Hotel. She used to clean the hotel rooms and stuff like that, right? But later on, I say by the time I was 10 years old, she kind of like, you know, was retired. I was frequently humiliated by the way that she did things, when she bought clothes and shoes or whatever, right? She did things that was designed to fit her era. It caused me to kind of like really deal with some type of trauma, I think it was. Whereas that I had to kind of like find a way to be like a clown, so to speak, a class clown, in order to kind of like deal with a lot of humiliation and stuff that you get from kids and stuff. You know, they come up with something for everything.
But what kind of humiliation was it?
I was wearing khakis all the time. Kids didn't wear khakis. They wore like real cheap tennis shoes and stuff. Everybody else was wearing Converse, you know, Chuck Taylor shoes and stuff. She wasn't finna pay no money like that, right? So my tennis shoes was like real cheap.
Did you graduate from school?
Actually, I made it to about the 9th grade, but I played basketball pretty good. And I was kind of like really just moved up. And I made it to, I think, about the 10th grade before I finally dropped out.
And why did you drop out?
I had been behind in school for so long because when I initially started school, I didn't have I wasn't prepared because my grandmother, she couldn't read and write at all. So I didn't have nobody teach me about the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3. So when I started school, I wasn't really where other kids were. So I kind of like was behind for a while. And then when I really, I think I was like in the 4th grade, and I took a reading class. And when I took the reading class, I learned vowel sounds and consonant sounds. Before then, I used to study real bad. All right, but once I learned those sounds, it kind of helped me catch up. But I was still, a few years behind. So even going to school, I didn't have the confidence or belief that I could achieve the things that other kids was achieving. So I wound up just dropping out of school and getting a job, going for a car wash, and I went working at a car wash. I had made it to the 11th grade, but I basically had a 9th grade education.
You started to work, but at some point, and I'm curious to know how you ended up incarcerated for stealing and selling drugs. How did that happen?
It began as a kid, kind of like growing up, and kind of like the area where we was raised up, it's like the ghetto. Okay, so that's what people do. They do a lot of stealing and burglarizing and stuff like that. I wound up doing some stealing and burglarizing too. And as a result, I got tried and convicted for a burglary case. And I went to Ferguson, went to prison. And when I went to prison, that was really what set me off on my journey, so to speak. Because when you go to prison, back then, it was a place where you was really, really dehumanized. Prison is kind of like changed now, but it's still a place where you dehumanized to some degree or not, but it was really, really bad. So when I got out of prison, I still had a prison mindset. And a lot of things that most kids understood, even though my grandmother, she did her best to raise me as well as she could, I didn't understand a lot of things about civics, about social form of correctness and stuff like that, right? So if you live in life and you don't have some type of pattern where things make sense to you, then the things you do are not socially correct, okay? So that's the area where I was kind of like on. And I stayed out of prison for about 18 months, all right? And I wound up going to a federal institution.
Why did you go to this federal prison in Indiana?
It was a bank that was robbed in Cleveland, Texas, and I was convicted for that, and that's why I wound up in Indiana. I made a plea agreement and I got a 10-year sentence.
For bank robbery?
They had broken down the bank larceny. I stayed in there for about 5 years, 6 years.
Wow, that's quite a life.
The state prison, like back then, they would really treat you bad. Okay, you get beat, a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But the federal system, it was entirely different. It's like they call you Mr. And when they call you Mr., if they call you Mr. in the state prison, something other bad finna happen. All right, so you go to the Fed and they treat you different. They treat you pretty much like a human being. And in the federal system, you meet people who have really done a lot of things in their lives, and people like really intelligent. So I learned a whole lot when I was there, and that's why I got interested in school. And I started studying for my GED, and I passed the GED test. I got one of the highest scores in Indiana. But before that, I didn't really have the confidence that I could really achieve anything. After I finished, I started going to college, and I was on the dean's list. I'd never made no A's and B's, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I began to realize that once you commit yourself to something that you're really interested in, then you can really learn a lot. And I learned the value of education. So I wound up getting a social degree.
Around 1980, you get out of this federal prison, but you're going to start selling drugs. Tell us how it started.
I had a friend that I was in a cell with. Okay, and he was a real good friend of mine, and I'd do anything for him. So when I got out of the federal institution, he told me to go and talk to one of his family members, and this family member was selling drugs, and I didn't know nothing about no drugs and stuff, cocaine and all that stuff. And he asked him to send him $500. So I went to his family member's house and I knocked on the door, and he came, and I told him that his nephew wanted, $500. He sent me, to let him know. And he said, well, I'll get to you, just give me a few minutes. All right, so I went inside the house and you had people coming in and out. And I was kind of like really naive. I didn't really understand what was going on. I was just waiting for the $500. So after about 2.5, 3 hours, I need to leave, so I need to go back to the halfway house. So I said, hey man, I need to go. So he said, oh yeah, you want the money. So he went and he come back with this mail purse. And when he opened it up, it's like filled with like $100 bills. I'm talking about all kind of $100 bills, and I had never seen that much money. So he said, let me give you this here. So he gave me $500 to send to his nephew, and then he gave me $500 more. He said, this is for you. I said, man, I can't pay you no $500 back. He said, well, don't worry about it. He said, matter of fact, come back over here tomorrow and I'll give you some more. Man, I don't care what happened, I'm gonna be back over there the next day. So that started like an ongoing process where I was going over there every day and he'd give me $500. But after a while, I felt kind of guilty, so we started talking and I started, figuring out what's going on. And then he called me to the room and I see these triple beams, and I found out he's a cocaine dealer. All right, so I learned a whole bunch of stuff about that from him, and that's where the drug situation come in at, right? And he liked me because I didn't use drugs. Okay, so that means that I can make more money for him because I'm not being my best customer. All right, but I wasn't, I was totally naive to this here. But he gave me diamond watches and rings and stuff, Rolexes, and wanted to buy me a car and stuff. So man, as far as I was concerned, he was like, man, so this is kind of like what led me on a journey for selling drugs. I learned how to cut them, package them, and stuff like that. After that, he had a club. I would take the drugs around there and leave them at the club and stuff, right? So, and it took me to a whole different direction.
Years after you left your mother and your newborn brother, years after that you saw your brother.
Right.
Can you tell us what happened? You realized he looked like who?
He looked just like my dad.
Have you stayed in touch with him?
He passed about not quite a year ago.
Were you still seeing him even though he passed about a year ago?
I saw him one time, probably since I've been locked up. When I had an execution date, I think it was my last execution date. He came down to visit me with his family, right? But I hadn't seen him in some time, but I had him and another brother. They died 3 days apart. Actually, I was teaching class on another unit, life skills, and they came and told me that they had died, and I just kept teaching class.
You had a last-minute stay during one of your execution dates. Can you tell a few words about this experience?
The one that we recall, I think it was maybe like our third execution date. You're in a situation where it's no tomorrow. It's like, so the things that people take for granted, you get a chance to see in a different way. So you're waiting to die. So it's like money don't matter, jewelry, clothes don't matter. It's like you're finna die, all right? I'm not gonna be able to go to my daughter's graduation. It's just, everything that's occurred, I'm eliminated from that. And it's like, you're at a point where it's that your body and your spirit is like start battling. It's like your body is ready to collapse. Okay, it's like your body is like, I can't really go no further, right? And your spirit is like telling your body, say, come on, right? And your body is telling your spirit, like, you're gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here no more, right? And you be in a position where you be wishing that you could do something to help people or to make things different in the world. it's just so many things that be going through your mind that's not self-related. It's you want to help other people. But I remember the third execution date, normally that's it, okay, and I had 11. But I remember asking God, I say, man, I say, we don't really talk that much, you know? And I don't know what your name is. I don't know if your name Jesus Christ. I don't know if it's Jehovah. I don't know if it's Yahweh. I don't know if it's Elohim. I don't know if it's the big spirit in the sky. I don't know if it's Allah. Raut, Zoot. I don't know what your name is, man. Say, man, if you just move these needles out the way, then the rest of my life, I'm gonna serve you. And I think God got a real awesome sense of humor because I got 8 more execution dates after that, right? But I didn't get executed, so he answered my prayer. So what I've been doing since then, I've been serving. And that's what I do, you know. I may not go be serving in the church or in the mosque or whatever, but I serve humanity. You know, I serve the human spirit.
You had a daughter. Do you still see her?
We have a very good relationship. It could be a lot better, but I kind of like intentionally don't want it to be too good because when I got locked up, she was like 9 years old. She'll be 50 next month. And she got four children of her own. One is a police officer, another an RB. My granddaughter, she just started going to college. And my grandson, I think he make A's and B's and stuff like that. I got a son who's, he owns a trucking company. Another daughter, she's a school teacher. But I'm really proud of the accomplishments my kids made, and I don't want to really bring anything into their life, like my death or something like that, that caused them a great deal of trauma. So we communicate with them, but we don't want to get too close.
For this interview, Thomas, was there something else you wanted to add that you think we didn't talk about?
I'm not interested in nobody going to death row. You got kids in elementary school right now who be going to death row if they don't get rid of the death penalty. So for me, everything that I do is really not for me. It's for guys that I left on death row. And there's one in particular, he came to death row when he was 18 years old.
Who's that?
I think he's 69 now.
What's his name?
Harvey Irvin. You know, and for a person to be on death row for all them years, you know, so what we want to see them get rid of the death penalty. All right, we like to see them get rid of life without parole, because if you bring a person to prison and you offer him an opportunity to grow, to learn, to do what's right, and you are able to communicate that to him, and the best way to communicate that to him is through his peers. And that's why TDC now is investing in peer-led programs, you know. And when you get your peers to be able to communicate with these guys and help them go through things and learn things that they need to learn, you change the whole system. If you have to keep a person locked up for over 20 years, that's barbaric. You know, if you have to kill somebody in this modern civilization, that's a citizen of your own country, your own nation, that's barbaric.
You're hoping to get released maybe in a year. Can we say a few words? Do you have plans if you have this opportunity to get out of prison?
And we are able to get out of here. I have a lot of plans.
What are you going to do? You are married to a.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Yeah.
Okay, you're married to a woman in Switzerland.
Right. And,
are you planning to go there, or?
Man, she's heaven sent. It's be truthful about it. It's a beautiful woman. She's been here for us for so many years. We like to go to Switzerland, but it's so much that we want to do. We want to do some podcasts and things to talk about what it's like to go through things we've been through, to attempt to help a lot of people change their lives and to see things that they may not see. This road rage, there's just a lot of stuff going on that we want to be a voice. We like to be able to go to some alternative schools and talk to kids and stuff, right? And to share our story. And sometimes we don't really get it myself, but our story, it touches people. It touches people in ways that it's a trip. Sometimes we talk to these kids, and after we get through talking to them, I'm talking about you may have like 900 to 1,000 of them, and we get through talking to them, they be saying like, man, OG, man, I'm gonna get out the game, man. I ain't gonna use drugs no more. It's like once they understand what they're going through or the things that they're dealing with, you committing suicide. And I've been blessed to be able to somehow or another connect with them. And sometimes people who they're not prisoners, they don't really get it. But you got to tell people the truth. You got to explain to them what life is and what's really going on. And you can be anything you want to do. You can do it. You can achieve anything you want to do in this world. I'm talking about this country, especially this country. So many opportunities. But if you don't understand, you miss out on it. I got a few books inside my head. I want to continue doing this cognitive life skill things because this program is it really need to be everywhere, and I think that the system is going to wind up keep teaching people to be life coaches until almost every person in TDCJ is going to be a life coach.
So maybe in the future, even when you're out of here, you will continue to help inmates.
Of course.
Thank you very much for this interview, Thomas. The Maya used to play a ball game on this court against those walls. And you're gonna ask me what is the link with the death penalty. Well, I'm gonna tell you what we were doing to the losers right now with Walter, who is a guide here on this site. I'm in Yaxha in Guatemala.
At each end of the ball court, there was a stone ring, and the ball used for this activity was made of latex from the resin of trees in the area. The objective was to hit that ball using the elbows, the hips, and the knees. The losing team then had to climb this pyramid, because this is the pyramid of sacrifices. For the Maya, it was also an honor to be sacrificed in the ball game. The players would put on animal skins from the jungle, because the game was very intense. Nobody wanted to lose, because if you lost, you had to be sacrificed. And in the background, you can see the royal palace, where the rulers and priests would sit and could watch that ball game.
So it was the death penalty.
Look, for them, the act of sacrifice was carried out using an obsidian knife. The player was taken to a sanctuary at the top, and the chest was opened here, and the heart was taken out. The heart was used in the game to burn it, because the smoke was pleasing to the gods. The blood was used to paint the buildings.
And the governor, well, I mean the king was watching all this?
Yes, the royalty watched all that activity, and on some occasions, even the ruler himself participated as a player to resolve problems between other cities. These conflicts were settled by carrying out ball game activities.
Oh, and there were also sacrifices then?
No, only to resolve that problem.
Oh, when the governors were playing, I mean the kings were playing, there were no sacrifices then?
No, it was to resolve problems. You beat me, I give you the territory.
Okay, the sacrifices, it was only for the poor people.
Yes, the people.